I don't think we are. I think we're just going to chat a load of bollocks for an hour. That was going to be my plan anyway. That was going to be my plan. Anyway, let's get stuck into it. Trans representation in video games. Obviously, we are an underrepresented group. As I should probably say. In fact, I should probably ask Elliot. Would you consider yourself a cisgendered person, or are you a bit more? I don't know.
Well, very interesting you asked that, actually, because I'm actually currently still in a sort of kind of questioning period of my gender identity. Over the past kind of year or so, I've been definitely investigating more. I'm still not entirely sure. I'm still kind of that kind of just kind of queer questioning for now. I'm kind of swaying towards kind of more gender fluid and gender queer because I don't really feel particularly attached to any one gender, but also I'm just pretty chill on the whole. People can refer to me he, him, they, them, whatever. I don't really mind. But yeah, I wouldn't say I feel 100% cis. That doesn't feel right.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And it's also worth mentioning that our other two guests, Paisley Boyd is a non-binary person, and Umby, you are currently, I believe, newly identify as a trans woman.
Non-binary trans femme.
Non-binary trans femme. My apologies.
Yeah. Listen, I'm still figuring it out myself.
Well, we're all trying to figure stuff out, and that's what this podcast is for. Maybe you're trying to figure stuff out at home. It's just trying to show you that there are other people out there that are doing the same thing. And I think that's why trans representation in video games is so important. Because, I mean, I don't know a trans person who doesn't love a video game. And it's nice to be reflected in that media. I feel like our representation is getting better in other forms, particularly in television, with shows like Pose. That's definitely like better.
I mean, even in sort of like animation and kid shows, you're starting to get non-binary representation. In She-Ra, there's Double Trouble, and there's a like Craig of the Creek, I think is like some animated kid show on like Disney Channel or Nickelodeon or something like that, and they recently had an episode with a non-binary character or at least someone who uses they them pronouns, and it's like, yeah, that's great, especially in kid shows. Like, that's awesome. But yeah, it obviously still has a long way to go, but I think it is still a bit of a step further than video games are.
Sure. Now,
also, Steven Universe has non-binary character.
Oh, of course, yeah, definitely.
That's great. No, I agree completely. I think video games, they're not quite there. Especially, like, I've been doing some research. There is some trans representation in video games, but it seems to be more geared towards the kind of adult-oriented games. When it comes to kind of purely family-friendly kid stuff, which is primarily what I play, because I'm a soft little twerp. There's barely anything. I think one of the biggest tropes in all of gaming. I don't know if you're aware of the whole Mrs. Male character trope, where like the male character is always the norm, and then the female character is just, well, it's them male character, but they've got a bow on, and that's all it is. And that's still prevalent in any single kind of kid-friendly game you'll find these days.
The Mrs. Pac-Man phenomena.
Yes.
And you can't call her Pac-Woman.
And from the research I've done as well, like there seems to be, and I mean this isn't just in video games. I think this issue is universal, but a much higher percentage of trans femme representation to trans masculine representation. Shame.
It is. I mean, one of the major examples that I'll be bringing up about like trans representation in video games is a trans man.
Oh, cool.
And that is like a representation in a AAA game that's well written, but like that's a drop in an ocean,
Yeah.
I'm curious. Is there one area where we think, what we all think of it on it? Because there's kind of two sides to gaming. There's actual trans characters that are created and are explicitly trans in the games and the narratives they're in, and there's also like games that require customization, allow you to make your own avatar, and how much like options and freedom they give to you, and what kind of character you want to make. Because I mean, in some ways, a lot of gaming still was very, very much binary. Like literally, as much as I love Nintendo, God, I wish they would not make you choose having only a male or female me. Just let me make whatever. They're just the blobs of the sticky blobs.
Now they have sort of taken a step forward with that with the new Animal Crossing game, because you don't pick your gender in that, you pick your style, which is literally just like, I think what kind of. I don't even know what the difference is there. I think it's largely arbitrary with like maybe some difference in like the hair. I don't even know, like, because I just obviously picked the one that was more flowy like that. I picked a style that was more flowy as opposed to the style that was slightly more rigid. But yeah, like they don't make you pick a gender in Animal Crossing New Horizons. You pick a style, and those styles are not inherently gendered.
Ah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a similar thing with The Sims, because I think since like I want to say like Sims 4 onwards, I think they kind of stopped asking you explicitly like what gender or sex are you, but it's more a case of like they ask you, can this person have babies or not? Can this person like these people? Who can this people have sex with, and things like that. And I think it's much more easy way of kind of simplifying it and giving people the freedom without, I guess, having to worry about including every single possible term.
Yeah, I do play Sims 4. I believe that you do still have to pick like male or female, but then after that you can pick whether that person can get pregnant. So they can be like, a trans man or a trans woman, and like it is definitely better than previous Sims games. But as far as and you can make non-binary people in it. I should know. I made myself. But it isn't like there isn't a specific box where you tick to be like this person defined like is non-binary or is not part of the gender binary, or you just have to sort of tweak the customization assets of it.
Ah, I see. Well, yeah, well, it's a shame, really. I mean, as much as I appreciate that game developers are now doing that and giving us more freedom and like, at least giving us the tools of which to get to our desired kind of player character, it is feel very much like that they feel too frightened to make their own original trans characters to kind of like, here's the tools, you guys do it.
You do raise an interesting point, because like obviously it's very good when through character creation you are allowed to create a non-binary character. But yeah, you're very right. We should have games where we can play as a trans person with a story that is written about them.
Yeah, I mean, like just these ideas. It's sort of, I feel like someone needs to just make a gender simulator.
I mean, an alternate title to that game would be, let's try and irritate Professor Oak. Because much as I love Pokemon, hey, every single game starts with him immediately, like, aggressively asking you, "What's your gender? Tell me. You can't have a Pokemon until you
get your dick out."
It's like, show me.
Lovely stuff. Well, I'll start off with a trans character that I found out recently was trans. I didn't even know, but was in one of my favorite franchises growing up, and that was the character Poison, who featured in Final Fight, which was just shamelessly ripped off by Streets of Rage. But they've got a trans character in that, and it's quite interesting. The origins of that character, as you would expect, with it being a game from like the late 80s, are a little bit problematic, and aren't ones that fill you with pride necessarily. But they are still a trans woman, and they do beat people up, and I like both of those things. Like, I would like to watch more trans women beat people up on film. So it gets 2 thumbs up from me. Yeah. Sorry?
You pay me enough, I'll go out there.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Back 'em up.
A literal Kickstarter. Thank you very much. I'll go now.
I don't know if there are any other trans characters that you are aware of from video games that you played as like younger.
Oh, now I have to think about every video game I played growing up. I don't suppose the Taxi in Crazy Taxi was trans, was it?
Well,
it's transport.
Well, I think wasn't Birdo? Is Birdo trans?
I believe, yeah. I mean, again, very dodgy way they handled it, but given that it was the mid-80s, but I do believe, at least historically, Birdo may be the first instance of a trans character at least being alluded to in video game history. And because I remember, so it's interesting because since then, weirdly, because it was kind of bad that they phrased it very, very badly. Because I believe in the original manual for Mario Brothers 2, Birdo was listed as a guy who thinks he's a girl, and like trans women are women, trans aren't men who think they're women. That's not it at all. But ironically, it's because of that bad phrasing actually kind of led to the canonization of her as a trans character, because later on Nintendo were just kind of not with it. They literally would refer to Birdo as just a female ever since then, which kind of canonizes the fact that she is trans in a weird kind of backwards way. But it's something, I guess. I
mean, I'd actually read that Birdo was non-binary. So okay, it sounds like I really should have put the feelers out to Birdo to get them on this chat show, because I don't like us talking about them without them being present to defend themselves.
I do know that it was a more recent Pokemon game. It wasn't back in the red or blue or even the gold and silver era. But there was an instance of a beauty. If you fight this beauty in like the battle tower in the post game or something like that. And she has a line which is like, hard to believe a year ago I was but a black belt. And the black belt models and sprites in that game are all men. And like people have been arguing about this as, oh no, this is a mistranslation and blah, blah, blah. But no, if you actually go and look at the original Japanese, it is also talking about her having been a black belt. I've done a quick Google here. She's Beauty Nova. Just half a year ago, she had been a black belt, an all-male trainer type in Pokemon.
Wow.
So, I think we've got at least one canon trans woman in Pokemon X and Y.
Woo. Fair enough. That's really interesting, actually. I didn't know that at all. That's really interesting.
The thing, I think, I like thinking back to all the games I played, I can't really, there's no sort of trans characters that I remember or are kind of obvious, unless I've done a little bit of research and I might find that out. I suppose that's a lot with a lot of things, but also it's something that until kind of we've been talking about it today, I have thought about it, but not like in so much detail, because a large amount of the characters or the games I play, I'm customizing characters or making characters, and to me they're always queer and they're always trans in any characters I create. So I don't know about you, but yeah.
The signs were there very early on when I would always, like, as soon as Pokemon Crystal came out, the first Pokemon game where you could choose to play as a girl, I did.
Yeah.
Every Pokemon game since then played as a girl.
Yep.
And then every time I can customize a character, I'm just like, why play a man? Why? If for one thing, women have smaller hitboxes in most games, so strategically it just makes the most sense.
They can normally jump higher as well.
Yeah, and I would rather stare at a woman's bum than a man's if I'm walking around. But I don't feel bad objectifying her if that woman is me.
yeah, you're allowed to objectify yourself. I think that's totally allowed.
I'm a hot piece of ass,
Let's move on to a more modern iteration and something that a lot of people are talking about at the moment. I think we even mentioned it on a recent podcast, and that's the trans representation in The Last of Us 2.
Yes. I want to just correct something I said on that stream.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I thought mistakenly that the trans character who goes through like a lot of trauma, and the character who basically one of the game developers had a self-insert sex scene with, I thought they were the same. They are not. And I'm very much glad they're not, because I learned shortly after that episode of the podcast that the trans character that goes through a lot of trauma is in fact a child. So I'm glad there's no sex scene with them, and I'm glad no one called me on it last time for being so horribly wrong.
I did think that, actually, because I've since watched more on people playing Last of Us 2, and I've got further into it, and I've now like seen the character, and I've been like, fuck, I hope they don't get raped. Cause...
yeah, no, they super don't, I hope. But that wasn't what I was talking about. It was, but I was wrong.
Yeah, so I mean, how do people feel about that? I don't know if people are up to date with how the character is used. I know. I mean, I don't know entirely know how I feel about it. I've definitely seen enough of it to see why people are upset about them, and it does seem gratuitous, the amount of trauma that revolves around them being trans. I think that's the issue that I have. They're in The Last of Us 2. I have no issue with them suffering trauma and being hurt and attacked. I think the issue is that there seems to be a lot of their trauma does originate from their trans identity.
Do they get misgendered and dead note a lot? And that's the thing. It's like, why is that the main trans narrative in a lot of these kind of games or representation? Is it, I find it really hard, because every time I hear it, I kind of reflect back on stuff, and I'm just like, ow, this hurts, every time. And we can know a character's trans without that.
Sure.
It's not going to lead the story to, and it shouldn't be in there. But
like,
I mean, it can be in there to show that does happen. But at the same time, the only representation, I suppose, a lot of the time, if that makes sense. If that, yeah.
Yeah, there is a place for it, I think, in that I haven't played the game and I haven't watched Let's Plays. I'm still waiting for my friend to finish it so I can borrow it. So I really don't know what this character's arc is like. But like, I think if their misgendering and their dead naming is being portrayed as like a bad thing to do, and like the audience can see it is causing this person a deal of pain, then I can see why in a AAA game, like where they know that's going to reach a very wide audience, the developers, the writers could almost be looking at that as this is a teaching moment. The problem then comes from, for us, like that then trans person is written for cis people as opposed to being written for us. So I do think like there is a place for it. I just wish that there was a place for us as well,
Yeah. I think the representation I would actually like to see is on the writing team of that game. I think that if the trans character had been written by a trans person, then I think a lot of these issues would be sorted out themselves. I think the bit that I can see where they've come from is it's a game about the degradation of society, about civility and it no longer existing. And like so like the respect for queer people in general, I don't see it being as a high point in the apocalypse. I don't know, because I don't know, it's not nice, is it? But
I get what you're saying. Well, like if people don't have to worry about losing their job or being called out by because let's be honest, if the apocalypse happens, people will fall in with people who share their beliefs, like because there's no societal expectation to hang out with people that you don't like or care for. So if you like are a trans person who's picked up by a gang of transphobes, like they're not gonna respect your thing because what if our boss overhears us and we get fired, or someone overhears us and throws a milkshake at us? Like they can just do that. And so here's hoping that in the apocalypse only nice people survive.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Well, I've not played the game either, but the arguments I've been hearing is that people are arguing about like the extent to which they really drag out and exacerbate the trauma that this character goes through. Because some people, like as Red was saying, people are arguing that well, of course, you're in an apocalypse setting where the worst of humanity is left alive. It's not going to be surprising they're going to treat trans people really, really fucking horribly.
And that really is the setup of the game as well.
Yeah, but they argue that I mean, and you still have that. People say, I think I've heard the argument saying that people like they have that, but they take it just so far, so unnecessarily, so far and extreme. It goes beyond the point of like artistic authenticity. This becomes like torture porn. So people have been referring to it as. I've not played the game, so I don't know for myself, but I can certainly believe why they would do that. I'm really trying to probably take it to an extreme that's not necessary. And that's if it stops being. I mean, I don't think it's meant to make you miserable, but even so, there's a point where like you're going to make people not want to look at it or touch it ever again. If it's generally like causing so much stress and anxiety for people who actually are trans playing it. So I think there's a middle ground they could have found, even given the horrible setting it has.
I think also, I mean, it's not a great game, like compared to its predecessor. Like the original Last of Us is a fucking hell of a game that is just so it's a highly critically acclaimed game. And its sequel I just don't think hits the heights of the original in any way. And I mean, how do you feel about because I do think there are points in it that are clearly a big video game company trying to appeal to a queer audience, but I think in the meantime I think they gloss over a lot of stuff because it's clearly not been written by queer people. I don't know, I feel like they miss stuff and it feels like it's done for the sake of it. And then, queer baiting, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, Ellie's a lesbian, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's heavily involved in it. But there's something about it that is that seems not fun.
Right.
It's difficult to talk about without spoilers.
Given the sort of setup of the game, fun isn't what I expect.
No,
from the
sure.
story.
Well, I suppose it's equally.
That's fun.
It's equally framed around trauma the same way the other character that we were talking about is.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this last time. It's like it's obviously expected in The Last of Us for all the characters to go through trauma, but you know, it just sucks when the trauma is about their identity as opposed to, say, I think, like I said in the last episode, like the two black brothers in the first game, they go through a lot, but none of it's due to the color of their skin, as far as I remember. At the very least, I remember the big part of their story is not due to the color of their skin. And it just would be nice to have trans characters go through shit for unrelated reasons.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
because then we win because we get well-written trans characters, and the transphobes win because a trans character suffers. Everybody wins.
Everybody's happy. But actually, I guess talking about actually reminded me. I was looking up some trans characters earlier in video games, and I've not played this game. Maybe you guys have. Dragon Age Inquisition. The character of Krem, but apparently, actually, the writers behind the game they actually consulted. They actually had non-binary and genderqueer friends, and they actually consulted them with the script saying, "Does this look okay?" And actually got them to check first before they actually put it out. And
stuff like that is so undervalued.
Yeah, exactly. That was the trans man character I was going to mention, like when it became relevant. But yeah, Krem is like one of the best written trans characters in all the video games, and that is a AAA game. And his character arc. Well, he doesn't really have much of a character arc because he's very much a side character, but like you can find out he's trans from like dialogue options, and his backstory, like his identity plays into how he got where he is, but none of it like informs any decision he makes like in the game. Like he is a visibly trans character and he's quite proud of it. But like, it's not his defining characteristic. His defining characteristic is that he's a good soldier and he's loyal to Iron Bull. And like, yes, that is how you do good representation. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they consulted with trans and non-binary people writing the game, because he feels like a real trans man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just surprised that people are now all of a sudden acting like Naughty Dog are suddenly really good at queer representation, when clearly we all knew they were like that back in the 90s when the project working title for Crash Bandicoot was Sonic's Ass Game. So clearly they've always been up for that. And I mean, I've always felt very conflicted and uncomfortable as an asexual guy who's a really big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, and now Sonic's become such a huge, big, like, sexual deviant icon from the internet, and I feel like I'm not allowed to like him anymore.
But I mean, I don't know the numbers of like how many trans people are working in video games. But you know, I know I always talk about trans representation in comedy. That's definitely a panel that I've been involved in more discussions on. And I think my views on that are the exact same as my views on this, which is if you put more trans people behind development, you know, in the development part of the creation of these pieces of media, then you will see better representation on screen. I think that definitely makes a huge difference. I know that a lot of when I've seen some interviews with people of color, for instance, who work in the film industry, they've said that their personal issue wasn't that there weren't enough black roles for black actors, but there actually weren't enough black staff on the movies, you know, like cameramen, key grips, all of this. And I think that's where the diversity should be aimed at to begin with, if you want your end result to be as diverse as possible.
I think what is interesting though, like, I'm a console gamer for the most part, playing on the PlayStation at the minute. Like that's where my current loyalties lie. And so I watched the PS5 reveal at the back end of last month, or whenever it was, and there was a really, really like beautifully animated indie game called Goodbye Volcano High, And I didn't realize this until after the fact. Like, I saw it and I thought that looks like a very nice game. And it was only when Brendan, my partner, came up to me afterwards and was like, "Did you know that the main character in that game is canonically non-binary?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't." But like, looking at the art of them, I'm like, "Oh yeah, obviously." You know, they got that look about them. But just looking through like sort of not like a sort of list of non-binary characters in video games, like Goodbye Volcano High is an indie game, and like, at least as far as the Wikipedia goes of like listing non-binary characters in video games, it's like indie game, AAA, indie game, indie game, indie game, indie game. Like, it's so many of the like actual canon genderqueer and non-binary representation in the video games industry comes from small indie studios, small teams who probably do consult with like actual genderqueer and gender non-conforming people. But it's like, yeah, you've got some big names in there. You've got 2 in Borderlands 3. Oh, that's a AAA game with 2 of us. That's very nice. You've got like a major character in the Elder Scrolls. You've got Bloodhound, who I mentioned in the last stream. But otherwise, it's like all indie games. In fact, so much of it is Undertale.
Yeah, but isn't that the way with a lot of things? You know, I mean, for instance, you know, I run an LGBT comedy club in Manchester, and it's, you know, it's very much an independently run outfit. You know, we're not being welcomed with open arms to the Comedy Store or anything. Like, these, you know, representation of marginalized groups does tend to come from, you know, independent companies before big business. We're more proactive, and big business is reactive.
Yeah, I suppose like it makes more sense for. I don't know anything about any of the companies that have made these indie games, but it wouldn't surprise me if, say, one of the people on the team behind Goodbye Volcano High is canon. You can talk about canon in real life, but you know, it wouldn't surprise me if
in God's eyes, I canon.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if one of them was non-binary or gender non-conforming, and so maybe they wanted to make a story about their life and their experiences. Whereas, very right, games like Borderlands 3, which, you know, Gearbox is a big company, they're probably just like, we're making this game, oh, let's throw the queers a bone.
Yeah. The thing is, because we've discussed like a few different like actual good examples of trans characters, but they're always like side characters. They're like kind of to the side, like background characters don't really have like some not too much significance. And they're like the main protagonist. That's what we're really kind of lacking. There's no, I mean, as I'm aware, I don't know of any kind of really prominent, well-known trans protagonist characters in any games beyond like avatars you make yourself. Yeah.
Flack, who is one of the 4 playable characters in Borderlands 3, is one of the 2 non-binary characters. But this is the problem. I said this in the last podcast, Red, is that a lot of these non-binary characters in AAA games are characters with obscured faces. So like it's more of their gender is a mystery, and yes, people refer to them with they them pronouns, but like there's sort of like an area of deniability about it. Like, I adore Bloodhound from Apex Legends. But like, it's almost like they know they have to keep the character's face hidden, because if they show too much, then the fan base can go, oh, look at those cheekbones. All right, that character's a man now. Like, they know they have to hide it to stop the grubby little gamers from getting their cease juice all over it.
Oh, that reminds me so much about how much just kind of toxic internet arguing there was over the gender identity of the Pyro from Team Fortress 2, because they're always the mascot, so you never find out what they are. So everybody was like, oh, still to say people having those toxic, horrible discussions about it. Like, just leave it alone. Or let's canonize them as non-binary or whatever, please, Valve. But I mean, Valve doesn't really make games anymore these days, do they? So
yeah, it's like it would be nice if, you know, one of these AAA representations of non-binary people just had someone who was visible and human, because that's the other thing about Flack, is they're a robot.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Oh God. Yeah, I suppose it's definitely a weird one. I feel like growing up, I saw a lot of characters that may not have been canonically non-binary, but like they definitely looked androgynous, and that was definitely done on purpose. And I always found that interesting, how, because in video games you're not using real actors, you're using things that you are able to create and manipulate. I always found it interesting how some artists chose to display characters as androgynous. The character that comes to mind would be like Hwoarang from Tekken, who to me always looked like, well, it always looked like me because it was like a ginger person. So obviously that's my representation sorted as a 12-year-old child. But like they had a very feminine face, but then were clearly had a male body, and I don't know. Like I always found like some sort of comfort there, even though they were never explicitly described as non-binary. I've always been interested in how we as a people are oppressed and told that we're not real, but every now and then you see us. They kind of use our aesthetic because we look really cool and hot.
Yeah. You'll have characters that are NB coded.
Yeah. The Mortal Engines by Peter Jackson had like the archetype non-binary transmasc person in it, and then just made them like hetero as fuck, you know, so that they can sell it to China. That's definitely the end game with a movie that's that dumb. But it was really sad because I was like, oh, but she's like, they're definitely one of us, but you're not letting them be one of us. It's like watching Drag Race.
Yeah.
You know, you're aware that you are watching a non-binary person, but they're not allowed to say it on the camera.
That's really remind me as well of how kind of bizarre it is, like the gender expression of like characters. Back to like kind of like, you know, kind of kid-friendly games, like, you know, when you get like games that actually have, you know, pretty predominantly quite androgynous looking characters, like, you know, in games like Sonic or Pac-Man, because they're just animals or just blobs with arms and feet, and yet like, because like clothing is only reserved for female characters. I have to be explicitly told that the female was wearing clothes. Men can be naked, that's fine. Like a couple of years ago, they finally made a Sonic game where you can make your own like Sonic furry avatar.
Yeah.
If they made a game for the furries, well done, Sega. I mean, it works. They got loads of money now. But it's so weird in the avatar creation. Like, if you make a male character, they're allowed to be naked, but a female character must always wear clothes. Always wear clothes. You can't have a naked female character. It's against the law.
That's so weird.
So weird.
That is weird. What have they got against naked women? I love naked women.
I was about to be like, who's sexualizing Sonic characters? But then I remembered that I'm on the internet.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Not me, but everyone else. But it's weird. The female characters, they even like have like, they don't have like, you know, a bust or anything like that, or anything that would be considered like, you know, genitalia that must be covered up. They have the exact same like body type as the male characters, other than like, I guess some of the facial features are different. That's literally it. So why you cover it up? What's the clothes for? It's so bizarre.
That's weird.
Never even noticed that. That is weird.
Honestly, like the less said about Rouge, the better, though. That character is just jiggle physics, the character. Actually, I was looking up. I forgot. Actually, I completely forgot about a confirmed trans character in gaming. I completely forgot about because I was literally like a kid when I played it. Have you guys ever played Chrono Trigger?
Oh
No.
yeah, I have watched a lot of Let's Plays.
Yes, the character of Flea, who is like I've not played games since I was like a kid. So I can't remember much from it, but so even though the character like model has, you know, very prominent breasts, has like long pink hair and skirts and stuff, the game still identifies them as a male. Apparently, when they're questioned on that, they just like say, you know, what's the difference? You know, power is beautiful. I've got power. It's all that matters. And, like, they really kind of, you know, own their androgyny, and like, yes, that's nice, and that was from '95, which I can't believe how old that game is, but that's something at least. That's a nice thing from the SD year.
I mean, to cast the discussion a little bit broader for a second, let's not forget that queer representation in general in video games has not been great. You know, I mean, I've only recently remembered this because I went back and played it a couple months ago. But Streets of Rage 3 has got a gay character who it's fucking ridiculous. He's essentially like a big gay Al type. He looks like a member of the Village People. He's got like assless chaps. Everything that he wears is like pink and purple. He's called Ash, and his fighting stance is like all limp-wristed, and it's just generally harrowing, to be quite honest. It's crazy.
Yikes.
And I mean, you know, like, particularly off the back of like Streets of Rage 2, which is one of the greatest video games, possibly the greatest beat 'em up of all time, maybe. Who fucking knows? Anyway, it's a fucking great game. To follow that up with some of the most homophobic character creation in video game history that I can recall is very sad. What a shame.
It's interesting. I realized actually the kind of similarities. We talk about similarities between like, you know, queer representation in video games and also like in cartoons and like in TV and stuff. I think it's interesting how I mean, it's realized because obviously when we look back retroactively on like queer representation, like Disney films, usually it's always like reserved for the villains who are coded as queer, like Ursula and Scar. They're like, actually, I realized that's the same in video games because the first two trans characters we got in video games were villains, Birdo and Poison. And like, so it's clearly a trend going on there.
Yeah, definitely.
I forgot Birdo was a villain.
Well, in Mario 2, originally Birdo was a villain. It was like a mini boss. Then he's just a sports character. Then
I think it's quite easy for people to overlook how underrepresented queer people are in media. The one example that I always use is name a single actor in Hollywood who is gay, who is like a leading actor. So like they are the starring role in the majority of their movies. They don't exist. There isn't one. There isn't a single gay person who is a leading person in Hollywood who is openly queer. There was plenty in the closet, fucking plenty. Tom Cruise, John Travolta, Keanu. There's a lot of them, but
I don't think Keanu's queer.
He is.
Not known yet, but he is.
You should watch Private Idaho. He's loving it.
Okay.
But yeah, they don't exist. When they do exist is, in fact, I remember seeing an interview where someone mentioned this, and the interviewer said, well, what about Ellen Page? And the person quite rightly pointed out that Ellen Page was a leading lady until she came out.
Yeah.
She's not a leading lady anymore. She hosts podcasts now.
Yeah.
I mean, she did do Umbrella Academy last year, which was fucking great, and I did love it. But she's not leading movies like she used to when she was seen as an openly straight woman.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Ellen Page? Didn't she plays Ellie? Doesn't she in Last of Us? Right?
No.
Who is it then? Oh, sorry.
Ashley Johnson plays Ellie in Last of Us. I don't know. I don't think Ashley Johnson is a lesbian, but she might be bisexual. But I don't know.
I'm thinking of Beyond Two Souls. That's what I'm thinking of. That was
she plays. She's in Beyond Two Souls.
Was that game any good?
I don't know. I've got it. I'm yet to play it. It's one of the many games in my back catalogue.
I couldn't say.
But yeah, like bringing the topic back to video games and sort of how queer romances are sort of depicted. It is like, I think it's better than trans representation because Dragon Age Inquisition, very, very good on this front. You've got like the ability to romance. If you play a man, you've got the ability to romance men or women. If you play a woman, you've got the ability to romance men or women. But there are characters who are exclusively gay or exclusively lesbian. So there are characters who you cannot, sort of force into a heterosexual relationship. It's not like, say Stardew Valley, where all of the romanceable characters can be romanced regardless of what gender you are. Like, it's really, really good that in this AAA game, you have got characters who are canonically men loving men and women loving women. The sort of opposite end of that, I guess, is anyone played Fire Emblem Three Houses? So Fire Emblem series have long had like romance options for it. And yes, you could technically like romance someone of the same gender. But they were always, instead of like being explicitly named as romances, they were always like special bonds. It's like you've found your platonic soulmate. You've got this amazing spiritual connection. It's not like, you are a man in love with a man. The newest game, Free Houses, does have a male character that if you are a male character, you can romance and explicitly be in a actual romantic relationship with, but he's in DLC content, so he's behind a paywall. I mean, I guess all queer characters are behind a paywall because you have to pay for video games, but this one's behind an extra paywall. It's like a wall behind a wall. You have to burst through a whole house to get to him.
That actually reminded me. I actually remember. I like to watch a lot of playthroughs as well, and actually, I recently rewatched a playthrough of the game Bully. That right, I think I forgot the name of the company that makes Rockstar, yeah. I didn't realize upon when it first came out. Apparently, in that game, you can actually, have romances, explicit homosexual relationships with other boys at the school, which I wasn't even aware that was a thing you could even do. And it's not even like treated like a special kind of English. Literally, it's a thing you can do the same interactions with any guy in the game as good with a girl. I thought, oh, that's cool. I didn't even know that. And then surprised, no one really commented on that at the time it was released. Though I guess it was kind of wrapped up in the other controversy that game had.
Yeah, and I don't know how I feel about playing a game where I romance schoolboys. Doesn't appeal to me.
That's perfectly
fair. Cool. Well, I mean, any final points on today's podcast? Because I know video games are important to us, and I'm starting to get the feeling that the only way these things get better is just through our continued push for like awareness of other people like us, because the fact is like video games are programmed by people. They are created, like they are the gods of these worlds. If those creators and those developers either have no trans influence, i.e. that there's no one on the team that is trans in any way or queer in any way, then like they can still be expected to produce inclusive entertainment, because we need to be educating the wider society in trans lives so that everybody is just aware of us as a thing. I mean, like I feel like we're written really badly at the moment. I see so many instances of us written badly and used badly, and I just think that's because there's so many content creators, whether you're a movie director or fucking anything, or you create video games. There's just a lot of those people that don't know trans people, or aren't very close to them, so they don't have the awareness of what their lives are like, so they guess. And I suppose I'm grateful that they're even including us, even if we're being included badly. At least it's a step. I do still see it as a step forward, because there was a time when we were completely left out. I just feel like we need to raise awareness of our day-to-day lives and who we are as people, so that we can be accepted into the wider view of what the world is.
But then, sorry.
No, you
sure?
Yeah.
Like then with each bad representation, then what I worry about is that other writers that may have never met a trans person but want to write a trans narrative then follow off the back of that, and it creates kind of this effect of these same kind of stories and these same things that are going on. But there is places to that are given advice to any story writers and writers about this. Include trans people is the main thing, isn't it? Include those people in the discussions about the character. Include them as writers. Include them as in the development stage, as you were saying, Red, and continue that, and also have more than one. Get a better representation through many trans characters or many characters to show the differences and sort of just people in that way. I think that's kind of how I see it.
It should be done well as well. Like I feel like sometimes these games put trans characters in for the sake of it, and I don't think that's always helpful. I think that you should wait until you're in a position where you know that you can put forward a trans character that is realistic and positive in terms of our wider representation. And I don't think that you'll always have the right facilities available to do that. But if you find yourself randomly, you're developing a new game and you just so happen to have a couple queer people or trans people on your team that really understand those identities, then that's the perfect time to introduce them. I feel like there's too many cis creative teams making badly realized trans characters that do us damage.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, you know, because I do the occasional bit of writing. My partner does a lot of writing, and like any sort of writer worth their salt will say, you know, when you are writing something with a character, you know, you want to be thinking like, okay, does it make sense for this character to do X, Y, Z? You know, what would be running through this character's mind? Blah 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 blah. What would this character's decisions be?
Yep.
You know, that ranges anything from acting to improv to anything where there is a character that you decide what they do. And it's just fact that most of, I don't know about you guys, but most of like my choices are not made about me, like from the perspective of me being trans. Like me being trans doesn't, you know, affect what I'm going to have for dinner. But like if it decides, you know, if I'm going to, you know, buy certain clothes at a clothes shop or like go to certain areas of town, like that is affected by my gender identity. So it's just the case of if you're writing a character, you know, realize when their identity would come into the decision making. If that follows part of your narrative, great. If not, don't include that identity as part of your narrative. And if you like are really confused because you're cis and you don't understand like what a trans person would do in that scenario, find a trans person. If you're not friends with any of them, why? Well, great. If you aren't friends with anyone, find us. We're about. If you can't find us, look harder. If you really can't find them, email me. I'll read your manuscript and tell you why it's wrong. You know, get me to consult on your AAA video games. Pay me the money to tell you how trans people should act Last of Us free. Yeah, that
is a big issue. Is there are plenty of trans writers out there that won't fucking hire.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think it's good that how the power of community can help in this regard, because like as Umby was saying, a lot of the big trans representation in games come mostly from indie titles. That's something a lot of these kind of more diverse voices are found. But again, if an indie title gets enough support and love and payment from the community, often the big companies will actually pick them up, actually promote them and make them a mainstay. Because like Undertale is huge now. Minecraft started off as an indie game, and now it's one of the biggest games ever made. So I think if we continue to show our support and vocalize our support for these kind of games that actually have really good representation of all queer identities, hopefully I will, if anything, it will trick the money machines thinking, well, if we give this more money, then we'll get more money. So yeah, sure, I guess trans people are cool now. No, I agree. Everything you guys are saying.
I mean, it is kind of crazy how, like how angry people get with certain people's representation in video games. Like if a trans person is even included, they see it as some sort of attack on themselves.
Yeah.
It's kind of pathetic, isn't it? I mean, like, I don't know, because I've been playing video games for a very long time and have been, whether I play as a woman or a guy or even a non-binary person, it doesn't really matter. I don't know, like, I don't think it's me. I don't know. I don't understand why they find it so personal.
Yeah, because like no matter how much trans and non-binary representation there is in video games, you're never going to have a game with zero straight white. Well, you're never going to have a game that has like human characters in it that has zero straight white men. You'll always have your guy. You'll probably always have your guys. So
yeah, exactly.
Out and let us have some too. You will still have your character that you can look at and go, "That's me. I'm Nathan Drake." Whereas we want to be like, "Oh, that's me. I'm Nathan Drake. Nathan Drake is trans now. We're claiming him."
Yeah, but seriously, Nathan Drake is trans now. We are claiming him.
Yeah.
He's ours now.
Yeah.
And Sully. Why not? Both of them.
From Monsters, Inc.?
No, isn't Sully the name of...
Yeah, Sullivan.
His pilot man.
Listen, have you seen it? Hawaiian shirts, smoking cigars, that man is trans. That man is big trans culture, okay? Sully is fucking Paisley in 50 years.
Yeah, that's fair. Any other characters we'd like to reclaim while we're at it? Blaze from Streets of Rage. She's ours. Sorry, lads.
Waluigi.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You can't tell me Waluigi's not a trans man.
Oh, I mean, Waluigi has got serious drag king energy.
Waluigi is like a stereotypical like trans person trying to pick a name. It's like they just look at two of their friends and went, ah.